Welcome to the Getting High on Leadership series featuring Paul Karasik. Paul is one of America's top management consultants helping leaders succeed. He is the author of 9 books, including Sweet Persuasion and Brilliant Thoughts and Provocative Questions. His insights appear regularly in major publications, and he is one of the most sought-after executive coaches. Paul founded the American Seminar Leaders Association and the Psychedelic Institute of Los Angeles. He is a popular speaker at national conferences and has been on stages across all 50 states and internationally. Paul's work addresses the question, how can we transform conflict in business into collaboration? With decades of experience in management, leadership, and psychedelics, he brings a unique perspective on personal and societal growth. In this series, we'll be discussing his latest book, Getting High on Leadership, The Leader's Guide to Higher Consciousness. We'll be exploring the concepts, techniques, and mindset required to revolutionize leadership. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the series. My name is Sanchez, your host, and we are joined by the author of Getting High on Leadership, Paul Karasik. As we make our way through the book, you can join us for the ride by grabbing an ebook below, or just pick up anywhere throughout the series that a title catches your interest, and or start from the very beginning. Today, we're talking about the section Embracing Change, and it can be found on page 78 of the book. And man, as far as embracing change goes, this is one of my favorite aspects of leadership and management in my day-to-day work. So I'm really looking forward to this particular conversation, Paul. But where should we begin with the perpetual state of change all around us?
Yeah, this is a very important chapter. I remember years ago, I've done a lot of speaking, and people would start to call me and say, do you have a program on change? This is really big, like about 15 years ago. And I go, change is not a topic, it's reality. How do you know what I'm saying? I thought it was such a silly request. Can you do a talk on change? How does
that, and then it's really the counter is, how does that differ from today? From your actual life waking up, does everything exactly as you saw it was yesterday, and nothing changed in any aspect of your life, or thoughts or mindset or
it is life. Change is life. Life is about this. From the minute we were born, this decay begins and ends up looking like I do now. At some point, if you're lucky, I would say.
Yes, yeah, and it's almost like it's an aspect of humanity to change that way and to experience things and learn from that and have the wisdom to move on. It's almost a matter of now we're getting into science there too, but into evolution and how even species would change to adapt to their environment. And companies and projects and small groups want to set their standards and their guardrails and set their process, and they have a plan and a roadmap at times. And if they aren't willing to address change, or at least consider it, it's going to be a hard road.
You can't be a leader. You got to love change to be a leader.
And look at it almost as an opportunity, right? The change even if it's frustrating or even if it's surprising, you want to take that change in stride, because that's where you find innovation. That's where you find the opportunity and longevity for your projects and your leadership role.
Yeah, I love that. I love that quote by Mike Tyson. He said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And it's so true. The leader comes in, here's our vision, here's our mission, here's what we're doing, and everybody's like, yeah, and then boom.
Budget cuts, or a new customer comes in.
A new customer, you lose your best customer, or there's a storm, and it's a hurricane, and I think it's not a matter. Consciousness is the only solid thing, in a sense. To be in higher consciousness and to see the world, they talk about it in some of the scriptures in the East, to see the Tao, to see how things happen. That's what the word Tao means. That it's change. That's how things happen. That everything is in this constant change. So who is trying to maintain that status quo is the ego, a problematic reality that we all have as leaders that we've talked about quite a bit in this program, that get in the way of the best possible outcome. Consciousness is freedom from attachment to that change. My dad was a builder, and he built our house, really nice ranch type house. And he built houses and all kinds of different things. But he wasn't a carpenter. And carpenter and building are so different, right? I mean,
right. Versus making a fine curio cabinet.
Exactly.
Or a 2-story ranch house.
Exactly. So he was not a carpenter. But he had all the tools, and he could do it. His skill was a builder, not a carpenter. And every time I say, Dad, I want to build like a speaker for my guitar or something, and he'd start to do it, and because he's not a carpenter, he'd go, and he would make it like a saw cut that was like, oh shit, he just ruined the whole thing. And he always had this way to like turn it around. Now that cut's perfect. Now you can put like a piece of paper in there, and you can hang your sign on the front of the speaker. So you got your, like, you would turn it around.
Just taking anything in stride and finding a way to use
anything
way it is, right? Anything but start over.
I remember one time he cut the switch, the switches for the room, but he cut too big, and there's a hole in the paneling because he used, he didn't want to do the fine work, so he'd take like a circular saw and cut it, and it's like,
just go at it,
yeah. And to this day I think about that cut, but he would turn it around.
How did he fix the light switch part? Did he put a panel behind it or something else?
No, he would say something like, "Nah, that's gonna work." Like he would just, it would just like, I just loved the way, change was just something that,
like he was unfazed entirely by
absolutely
dealing
unfazed.
with it. Yeah,
unfazed. And so I think that there's a couple of things happening in this chapter that we need to kind of bring up here. One is, you can't stop it. So there's only one thing to do, which is surrender. You cannot maintain. And and when it comes to consciousness, that's the most important thing. What is consciousness? What is consciousness, and where does pain come from in change? Pain comes from wanting things not to change, to stay the way it is. That's where the pain comes from.
Right. And almost creating your own reality where they didn't change, and just try to dig your feet in against any change, huh?
Yeah, status quo.
Right.
But the truth is that who the person that wants that is the ego. I know this. I've been involved with this. I don't want that. That's different than this. Now I have to learn, I have to
change my plans now. I got to rewrite the story or reallocate.
The ego doesn't like that, and doesn't see the universe as what it is, which is this constantly unfolding, revealing, expanding, potential manifesting thing that is what we call life. Instead, they see only from their egoic point of view, which is, that change is going to affect me this way. Which is when, if you've ever gone to a meeting and somebody starts, when the leader starts talking about the changes we're going to implement, like, nobody cares about anything except, how is it going to affect me?
Yeah.
Do I have to work longer hours? Do I have to get, am I getting a pay cut or a pay raise? That's all they care about. They don't care about the change. So that's the ego, right? That's what we're talking about.
And I think you flagged the importance there, or the courage and the confidence that it takes to surrender in that way, to change and kind of embrace change, take it in stride.
Mm-hmm. Here's another one. How about if we said every time there's change, it's positive? Let's make that assumption.
In some situations, very easy to apply. In others, difficult, but still applicable. Even if it's a big, if we look at
Stretch.
the software side of things, maybe sometimes we have an issue, right? Or a bug
Mm-hmm.
or a problem has come out. Obviously, that's a thing we want to avoid, and it's a problem. But that problem presenting itself has now given us opportunity to solve it and make sure it never happens. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe in doing that, we also find something else that we can prevent or a better
Mm-hmm.
way to avoid finding those issues later. So I think that mindset can be difficult at times to be okay
Yeah.
with finding a problem too, because you want to, if you find a problem, if there's a hole in the floor of your house, obviously you're mad. That's a problem, but it is a change that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
If you don't want a fireman's pole,
Yeah. You have
or
to
I
embrace
guess
it.
choosing to put the fireman's pole is your dad's approach. Oh, we have a hole here.
Yeah,
That's
let's
great.
put them. Let's use
Yeah.
it for something that's fun. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's it. That's it. And I think it's also attachment, and that's another issue in consciousness.
Yeah, just
So
holding
we get
on
it.
to that previous world state.
Yeah, that attachment to what is, and attachment is the source of practically all of our suffering in life. I'm talking about mental suffering, and that's being attached to a certain what is, and then that what is not being there anymore. And that's so much of life. We create a desire. I need this to be happy. I need a wife. I need kids. I need a big house. I need a car. And then there's an attachment to that. And then things don't go in the right direction. And you feel terrible. You feel scared. I'm not going to get that. It's the issue is not whether you're going to get it or not. That's not the source of the discomfort. It's the attachment to that. That's the source of it. It's got to be this way. And the truth is, you know what I was thinking about this chapter, Rob, that one of the most important things in life, to me, is to be able to accept the fact that I don't know. And that's really what this chapter is about. I don't know.
Because it takes a great degree of humility to just approach every change as if it's a good thing, right? Because you don't know what that means to
You
have that
don't
mindset
know.
of what you'll encounter.
Yeah, you don't know. And that's why my dad kind of had it right, in a sense. You don't know, or maybe visually, but maybe practically this is a great thing, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I think something that has evolved from that push for change that you were seeing around change management is an agile workflow for businesses in software, out of software, and for teams and small groups. And agile at its core is embracing change. It is very much the poster child of this chapter, because what it requires is that your group, whether it be home life or corporate life, whatever that group is that they have a sprint defined. And that's, what are we going to do in this interval of time? And after that interval of time, you got to look back and see, what did we learn about what we thought we were going to do, and what are we going to do next? And that creates this cycle where you're constantly pushing, what are you going to do next? You're constantly learning from the past interval and trying to take that change in healthily. Because when you do that, if there's any new, maybe in the family analogy, because we've talked about business a lot, maybe you're planning to do something in your hometown, but then your wife gets a new job and you have to move, right? Those are the big changes I think that can happen in home life. Learning from those, looking at how they're addressed, and then trying to be cyclical about improvements, and just taking that change into the core of like who you are. And they almost talk about it like this agile mindset. And I find so many correlations with agile and with the conscious leadership approach that it's almost uncanny how you could come to the same conclusions. I think agile maybe focuses more just on managing stuff and doesn't bring in this leadership side of really of wanting to let go, or realizing why maybe your followers are holding on to the past and resisting change. And I think that in one of the lines here, you define it almost like you're picking a fight with powers that are way beyond your
Mm-hmm.
control by
Mm-hmm.
wanting to hold on to the way things were before encountering this change. That it just like if you step back and look at that, like the forces of the universe you're railing against, it's like, all right, I guess
Mm-hmm.
I got to go with the flow here because
There's no choice.
how many hours or days are you going to be upset about that before you just have to
Mm-hmm.
roll with it?
About living in the unknown and getting
Yeah.
comfortable with the unknown and saying the unknown is not, it is reality.
Right. It's nothing
My
to get
e
mad about when we encounter the unknown. We should say, "Oh, it's you again.
it no
I
it
knew this would happen."
yeah, this is reality, and my ego is playing this whole other game over here. Change is reality. The ego is not real. It's a made up facade that we learned since we were born. We were given a name and identity, and you're from this place, and you're this religion, and everything else. That's a very limited. That's the potential of that is so limited. The potential in the unknown is unlimited. There's no cap once you're in consciousness about change and seeing it with that level of, like you said, this is reality. That's not. That's my game that I've made up, that it should be this way. Oh really? What do you think you know what should and shouldn't be? Do you know
Yes.
when you're going to die? Nobody knows when they're going to die. Nobody knew when we were going to be born. Nobody knows if I'll live tomorrow. Nobody knows anything. And to admit that with humility, the ego admitting that in humility, then change becomes a whole different thing.
Yep. Yep. And if we're talking on the personal scale, then that means happier relationships or happier
Yeah,
mindset, positive worldview, better routines and habits. Talking about that on the company scale, it means faster innovation. You can take change in stride and make a competitive advantage because
yeah.
of how you can adapt to change, maybe better than your
Hmm.
competitors or those in your niche industry.
Yeah. It there's
The change will never go away. That's the
it's the
core of
nature
it,
of
I think.
reality. I mean, you can't create a program for change. Can you come and speak on change? You mean speak on life? Is that what
Yes.
you want me to do? Speak about
Yeah.
life? Yeah, I'd
And
love
speak
to.
about mindset, right?
Yeah, speak about mindset. It's when it happens every day. And here's the takeaway from this chapter. Observe it when you get that news. Observe your immediate, that deal was canceled. Oh God, I was counting on that on so many ways. And now, like, just observe how the ego thinks it knows what's best. Just observe it. I'm just asking you to do that. Somebody said to me the other day, "Oh, I can't do that work. I got another job," and I wanted them to do the work. And I'm like, "Wow, I just took a minute and watched my response. Oh, I mean, it was, oh, damn, I needed that person. They're so good at what they do, and like I'm losing. I don't know if there's somebody twice as good at half the cost waiting around the corner who I'm going to love to work with.
Right.
So,
And those were all the
it's
initial reactions, like all this, like, what
it's
am I gonna do? I
automatic.
don't. Yeah.
It's
The
wired
gut
in.
stuff.
It's so wired in. So what I need people to do, and I'm asking you to do, is just create a little space with that when it happens, when you get that news.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, for the conversation around this. Change and change management within business and life is absolutely crucial, and having that mindset to approach it with
Mm-hmm.
consciousness is key. So, folks, take a look at your lives, your next opportunities to encounter change. They're probably not far from now, and
Mm-hmm.
observe those triggers that you have, and just try to be more conscious about it. And as always, you can find the ebook below. And please join us as we continue this section by section deep dive into getting high on leadership. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Getting High on Leadership series. If you have any questions, you can comment below or send them in via email to paul@paulkarasik.com. Follow him on Instagram at PK_The Conversation. Find out more at wholesalerinstitute.com and psychedelic-awakening.com. The Getting High on Leadership series is produced by Rob Sanchez and Apartment 113, which can be found at apartment113.com and followed on Instagram at APT_113.